Hey guys, tonight we are going somewhere that is definitely not on most sightseeing itineraries. The heart of Ming Dynasty Beijing, right to the imposing vermilion-tinted gates of the Forbidden City, under the watchful gaze of centuries past, guarded by palace sentries, and most importantly, by an elite squadron of imperial cats. There will be ancient rituals, endless tea, and probably not a health and safety regulation in sight. Full disclosure, there's a non-zero chance you'd already be frog-marched to the rice fields for stepping out of line if you tried this in real life. But conveniently, in this story, you're a gentle spirit guest, or perhaps just a very well-dressed time traveler whose shoes are slightly too loud for the palace stones. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Where in the world are you listening tonight? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to include your local time. Always love seeing how far this sleepy journey travels. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You breathe deeply as dusk folds around the ancient city. The air is just cool enough to make your sleeves feel luxuriously necessary. Loose, flowing, perhaps a bit showy. But hey, when blending into the Ming Dynasty, drama never hurts. An ox cart rumbles by, wheels muffled on stone, the driver glancing your way as though he knows something about modern socks. The eastern city wall rises ahead, gold-hued in the lopsided evening sun, throwing its long shadow over neat rows of willow trees and the lazy, greenish stretch of the moat. On its far side, the Forbidden City slumbers in 1,000 shades of red and yellow. It's imposing, yes, but also just ponderous enough that the nearby magpies seem to gossip about it. At the gate, 2 soldiers snap to attention, lacquered armor gleaming. Their spears clink with perfectly bored precision. One peers at you, up, down, pausing on your shoes. You try your best nonchalant yawn, studying the carved lion at your feet. The lion appears to have seen centuries of these entrance dramas and is certainly, at this hour, not interested in another. You announce an intention, vague, elegant, most likely to meet a scholar or someone important about tea. The guards eye each other, then produce a series of stamps and scrolls, every step as deliberate as arranging a cat's whiskers, just so. You're waved through with the gravity normally reserved for minor blizzards or wild tigers, neither of which, you note, seem all that likely on a Thursday at sunset. Stepping through the first arch, you are met by a smell that could only be described as ancient china with a touch of damp flower pot and incense. Your shoes scuff a stone so smooth it hums. The threshold, famous for its leagues of imperial foot traffic, now hosts a single marmalade cat who is much too busy licking its paw to acknowledge the universe. Or you try to step around, like any polite traveler. But instantly, the feline, in a move choreographed to perfection, sprawls across the only clear path. There is bureaucracy, and then there is bureaucratic catnap. And here, both rule supreme. The guards, still on their side of the gate, don't budge. You catch a faint glimmer of a grin. So, you stand awkwardly. It is a universal truth, you reflect, that cats run the world, and emperors are perhaps only second in command. The night deepens. The lamps on the outer wall flicker to life, sending gold shadows skipping over the immaculate cobbles. A breeze stirs the silk of your sleeve. Inside the outer gate, you can see scholars scurrying, their heavy robes drifting like clouds. Every second person carries something: fans, brushes, baskets, or sometimes just a frayed napkin, clearly on important business. You realize, belatedly, that you are standing in the very threshold where diplomats have sweated, poets have dreamed, and at least one sleepy cat stood its ground. The palace is quieter than you expected. Not silent, exactly. The distant laughter of servants, the clink of a teapot lid, the melodious chaos of crickets all conspire to assure you that the past is not so different from any other night in any other busy home. Somewhere above, lanterns sputter as dusk wobbles into proper darkness. A servant in faded blue appears, gives a deep and probably obligatory bow, and gestures for you to follow. Your feet squeak just enough to mark your presence, but not enough to you wonder, as the cat finally allows you passage, if you've passed some kind of secret test. If so, you are now thwacked officially by a tail. You walk deeper into the approach. Painted archways, each with swirling clouds and golden dragons. The air thickens with the perfume of night-blooming flowers and the ever-present thrum of, "I'm not supposed to be here, and yet here I am." The attendant leads you through a second, smaller gate, where you glimpse another shadow slipping past, more feline than human. It seems the cats have their own network. As you pass under the next arch, someone important, judging by the embroidered herons on their sleeves, crosses your path, barely glancing up. Perhaps you look historically lost. Perhaps they're focused on not tripping over their own long hems. Nobody, you notice, trips. Entering the Forbidden City is like stepping into choreography, ancient and precise, where wrong-footedness is both anticipated and, if you're lucky, forgiven. Your nose finds smoke and tea, the comforting sense of an empire at rest. In one moment, you could almost imagine you're just a breeze, another memory draped across the stone. The servant leads you toward a courtyard. This one glows with a dim, natural gold, the kind of light that makes every leaf seem like a treasure. You pass two cats, one black as a moonless night, the other striped with pumpkin orange. They sit as though considering imperial business. You try to emulate their dignity. Your feet, unfortunately, have other ideas. A broom sweeps. The sweep is slow, methodical, and you sense it's more about keeping secrets than dust at bay. Above, the rooftops ripple with decorative tiles, glossy gold, studded with little mythical beasts who stare accusingly into nothingness. You glance from a stone leopard to a live ginger tabby and feel somewhat outnumbered. A young girl, a servant by her cautious steps, sets a low lacquer tray on the ground. On it, a tiny bowl of water and, perhaps extravagantly, a dried sardine. The bench cat glances regally at you, then at the feast, and decides you pose no threat to either fish or feline hierarchy. You sit back and listen to the city, the trickle of distant water, the pulse of drums announcing evening roll call, and the murmuring lull of a language only half familiar. Rich with formalities and floating syllables, your mind drifts, your breathing slows. The thick outer walls shelter you now, cocooning this slip of time away from the greater world. You're aware of how dusk cloaks the regular rules of being. Here, in this protected space, you are both visitor and quiet observer. A little cat-like yourself, perhaps, padding through history without leaving a mark. Somewhere in the shadows, footsteps approach, a silk-laden hush. The attendant returns, this time accompanied by another, altogether more splendid cat. This one is snow white, with a tail like the brush of an imperial calligrapher. The cat pauses, regards you, and apparently satisfied, leads the way. The attendant gestures, and you rise, following the slow, precise procession under another lantern-lit archway. Stone underfoot, moonlight above. And, just for a moment, the sense that every step you take writes a new, secret scroll into the palace's long, uninterrupted story. You follow in the footsteps of the white cat and the attendant, your nighttime caravan gliding gently through another gate beneath the heavy, gilded beams. The air changes again, growing both crisper and more secret, as though you've stepped through not just walls, but layers of memory and moonlight. The white cat leads with a calm confidence, its plumed tail swaying, a visual metronome for your heartbeat, which, despite your best efforts at Ming-era composure, still thrums with anticipation and accidental awe. Passing beneath the low archway, painted with chrysanthemums, you find yourself in a courtyard unlike any you've seen before. Here, moonlight spills like milk over jade-inlaid flagstones. Faint incense twines with the scent of sweet osmanthus that drifts from slim, ancient trees, their roots knotted and wise. Lanterns hang in quiet gradients down the open eaves, their faint glow softening the edges of everything. Yes. Scattered across the courtyard, sprawled in what can only be described as feline splendor, are at least a dozen palace cats. They come in every color, tortoiseshells like inkblots, silver tabbies rippling with soft stripes, oranges like marigolds, calicos with mysterious patches of ginger and cloud shadow. They recline on smooth stone benches and curl inside painted planters, unmoved by your presence, each an island of importance, floating in the larger sea of imperial dusk. The attendant stops, hands folded, and lowers their voice. The Jade Courtyard. This is their place, the honored cats. They gesture, a little grandly, as if introducing you to decorated ministers, who you realize may actually wield more real influence than many human officials. You contain your smile. It's not wise to snicker at palace politics, even when the council is made up of purring dignitaries. But Gardiner, stooped beneath the weight of his years and a straw hat nearly as big as an umbrella, moves with reverence around the clusters of cats. He offers each a respectful greeting, a gentle bow, a whispered word, and sets down little saucers bearing fresh water or, amusingly, a cascade of fresh-cut grass. The cats accept these tributes without acknowledgement, for acknowledgement would imply debt, and cats everywhere, it seems, prefer the give and take of tribute with the grand dignity of silent expectation. Near the willow-shaded pond, you notice a weathered, two-tiered pagoda, seemingly built for beings that prefer napping to praying. One cat, obviously old, with a single ear askew and eyes drowsy with age, rests there like a living statue. You pause to study him, noting the way his fur glows in the moonlight. The attendant whispers, "That is Lord Hua, oldest in the palace. The emperor's grandmother named him when he was still the size of a plum." You nearly bow. Lord Hua blinks, regally, slowly, and then proceeds to ignore you, which feels right. You take your place as a visitor, not a disruptor, in the feline order. Across the pond, another cat stalks a lily, her hunter's tail twitching above the shimmering water. The hunt, you observe, is ceremonial, a display of grace more than necessity. The koi beneath the water seem to know the script well. They drift lazily, perfectly unconcerned. All around you, the rhythm of the palace carries on. Every courtyard in the Forbidden City has its own personality and inhabitant, its own small parliament of cats. You realize, gently and perhaps a little delightedly, that you are witnessing a society within a society. There are rules here, subtle as the flick of a tail. The white cat, perhaps a leading official, winds deftly through the moonlight, pausing to sniff a peony, inviting you to wander, to learn. You wander. Velvet paws pad at your heels, shadowing your steps, perhaps to keep an eye on the newcomer, or perhaps to make sure you don't uncover some secret trove of palace sardines. You run your fingers along the worn stone of a bench, feel the air shift as a tabby brushes by. Is it a welcome? Or simply an accidental declaration that this bench is currently unavailable? Impossible to know. Palace etiquette is intricate, and feline protocol doubly so. In one corner, a group of kittens tussles over a broken feather, wrestling until a stern matron, a stately calico with a look that would silence rowdy eunuchs, disperses them in a single, devastating stare. You can't help but marvel. You've known teachers with less authority. Lean back for a moment. Listen. There is another world under this world, a tapestry of soft voices, distant flute music, laughter from behind a screen. Ming-era Beijing at night is as wild and civilized as any modern metropolis, and you, for now, are its hidden guest. A servant appears, this one older and wearing the blue headscarf common to palace animal tenders. She bows and says, "Would you like to feed them?" She presents a tray of treats, delicate twists of duck, a morsel of salted fish so perfectly curled it looks like a golden ingot, a single goose plume. She shows you how to hold your hand, flat and dignified, so as not to lose a finger or appear undignified. You quickly discover that the cats can be frighteningly decisive about which snacks are worth royal attention and which are, apparently, beneath them. Their eyes flash like jade shards in the candlelight. The woman grins, confiding, "Palace cats are both blessed and required by law." Seeing your question, she continues, "They guard the silks from rats. But they are also written into the emperor's dreams. They carry away sick spirits, bad omens. Sometimes," she adds, "they even advise him, but quietly." You try not to laugh, though you're not convinced she's joking. She shows you an embroidered patch worn at her belt, depicting a gold tabby crouched on a blue mountain. "My family makes these to keep cats close." Her thumb strokes the fabric, her eyes fond as late summer dusk. Then she pats her leg, and a half-grown ginger acrobat bounds onto her lap, purring so loudly it nearly drowns out the night. Just then, the stillness is punctured by a ripple of offended meows. You turn to see a collision of personalities. Two young cats squabbling over the comfiest spot on a narrow windowsill, each determined to embody the true spirit of imperial entitlement. You're not sure who wins. Both stalk off, deeply offended, tails twitching, as only cats who have known true luxury can. You move through the courtyard, picking up on tiny dramas, the cautious truce between an elder Siamese, reserved and silent, and a vivacious black kitten with mismatched ears. The careful, near-human gaze of one stately Tom as he surveils his territory, tracing the invisible boundaries that matter more here than any marble wall. After a while, you settle again under a low-hanging bough. The air hums with life. You study the painted panels, scenes of ancient heroes and immortals, and note that every hero seems to have a cat crouched somewhere. In this city within a city, the cats are guardians and counsel, muse and memory. The white cat, having circled the entire jade courtyard, returns to you, eyes bright in the half-shadow, tail flicking once, a summons. You rise quietly, careful not to wake the orange kitten now curled at your feet, and follow, heart full, into the deeper labyrinth of the imperial dusk. The white cat glides ahead, a living drop of moonlight, almost too elegant for the world, as it winds through a slender, vine-framed portico. You follow, your steps soften now, partly by the etiquette of the place, but also by a creeping, involuntary calm. There's something about navigating the palace after dark, among cats and storytellers, that urges you to hush your modern impulses and simply notice. You turn a corner, and the hush of the courtyard folds into a low, melodic murmur, voices, laughter, and the clink of porcelain. Lanterns, painted with peony sprays and tiny carp, cast buttery pools of gold across a long corridor lined with painted latticework and scrolls of poetry. The breeze nudges loose wisteria petals through the gallery air, their scent mingling with the richer aroma of tea, roasted, sweet, whispering promises of warmth. At the archway's threshold, you pause behind the white cat and your guide. It's almost a procession now. An official in indigo silk rises, remarkably nimbly considering the girth of his scholarly robes, his smile broad and teeth slightly tea-stained, as if evidence he has devoted his life to this liquid art. "Most honored guest," he says in a formal sing-song rhythm, bowing with a formality just shy of genuine solemnity. "You offer your own best bow, half-remembered etiquette, and pure-hearted effort." The official's eyes twinkle. "You travel lightly, I hope." Inside the scholar's gallery, everything brims with quiet intention. The room is both vast and intimate, a trick of deliberate design, perhaps, or simply of time passed with others who appreciate slow beauty. Delicate chairs, inlaid with mother-of-pearl, gather around long tables laden with teaware, scrolls, and intriguing snack dishes. Glistening sugared plum slices, candied lotus seeds, and spring green pea cakes, so fine they look almost mythical. Around the largest table, a set of Ming officials recline in various attitudes of focus, fatigue, amusement, and meditative silence. Their ranks are padded quite literally by at least 4 cats, some sprawled in heated baskets under the table, 2 old ones draped over the window ledges, another curled up right on a stack of Confucian commentaries. If you squint, the cats seem to have their own pecking order amongst the scrolls and cups. Your white-furred escort hops, without drama, onto the lap of the eldest official, who is more paper than man, his beard merging with the beard of his ancient companion. He strokes the cat's head with one finger and says, in the cracked voice of either a sage or a willow tree, "Good company, good tea, good dreams." He seems to be addressing you, though it may be a general benediction to the room, or perhaps to the cat. You are guided to a seat at the table, careful not to disturb the tabby already occupying the one next to you. You feel infinitely that your presence here is permitted only on the understanding that you keep still, pour neatly, and do not disrupt the feline equilibrium. A porcelain teacup, thin enough to border on magic, cool to the touch, appears before you, expertly filled with leaves that smell of sun-warmed hay and a breeze from forgotten mountains. The official in indigo explains, not without pride, Bi Luo Chun, the emperor's favorite for summer evenings, smooth and sweet, dreamless as a pool at dawn. He pauses, arching one brow. Unless you spill, then the dreams grow very mysterious indeed. The others chuckle, trading stories that clearly tread the shadowed line between legend and dinner party misadventure. You sip. The tea is like silk and shadow, warming your tongue, blooming behind your eyes, with the gentle certainty that something remarkable is underway. The conversation floats between the officials in rhythmic waves, sometimes serious matters, grain shipments, imperial poetry competitions, the ongoing nuisance of overly ambitious nightingales, sometimes delicate barbs. It is a language that moves slowly, like ripples on a cart pond, with pauses long enough to let thoughts and cats drift at their own pace. Now and then, a cat will rise and sashay down the length of the gallery, demanding, receiving a piece of lotus seed cake, or sprawling along the scroll of a distracted scribe. Everyone adjusts. No one complains. This, clearly, is the highest courtly grace. To reorient all politics, conversation, and snacks around the seasonal whims of cats. The official nearest you produces a small, battered scroll. He unrolls it, and beside his teacup, you see tiny sketches, dozens of cats, each drawn with a single fluid stroke. Some are playful, some pensive. One little scrap of whiskers sitting atop a mountain, so confidently that you almost expect it to start issuing decrees. It occurs to you that living in the Forbidden City means always balancing ceremony and spontaneity. An enduring lesson in how history itself survives on a steady diet of accidents and improvisations. A lull in the conversation gifts a hush. Lanterns sway in the shaft of a window draft. Rain, so faint you might have imagined it, patters for a moment on the roof. Someone offers a toast. To harmony among all creatures, tea leaves that never run dry, and dreams too beautiful to remember. The old sage, still stroking his white cat, gestures for you to refill his cup. You do so, noting, perhaps smugly, the perfect lack of dribbles, a feat deserving minor palace honors. He smiles, or perhaps just sort of crumbles gently around the eyes. The meal's rhythm is set now by cats coming and going, and by the tea's subtle aftertaste, sometimes grassy, sometimes like green plums, always with a wash of something untouchable. The officials suggest, with both pride and humility, that the tea is finest only at this late hour, when the world is half velvet and half shadow. A young scholar leans forward to ask you, with the grave seriousness of late-night sentimentality, is it true in your lands people keep dogs inside their homes? And that your cats do not command the same respect? You answer as truthfully and diplomatically as possible, not wanting to spark an international incident, feline or otherwise. The table erupts in incredulous laughter, half amused, half scandalized. A tabby stretches to paw insistently at your sleeve, as if to extract further explanation, or perhaps to demand another ripple of laughter. Stories turn now from cat folklore to old palace disasters, every tale multi-layered, flavored with understated drama and dry courtly humor. There's the story of the night a white kitten made off with the Empress's best jade hairpin, or when an ambitious black tom led a midnight parade through the duckweed garden, halting all official business for hours while every servant ran about with lanterns and frantic whispered prayers. You realize, listening, how these stories, all overlapping and half-remembered, are the true center of the palace. Not the marble floors or golden spires, not the scrolls, but these tangled, whiskered anecdotes that pass from one era to the next, like patchwork quilts. You feel the soft warmth of the tea beginning to make your thoughts loose, your bones weightless. The lantern light sways. You imagine, for a moment, that if you gazed into your cup deeply enough, you might see the lives behind each reflected flame. A poem scribbled in moonlight, a cat curled beside a brush, an emperor pausing to scratch his favorite advisor's chin before ruling the world anew. The old sage raises his cup a final time, eyes crinkling in the same way as his cat's. Night grows deeper, he intones, but our guests, human and otherwise, must carry these rituals with them. Here, even in sleep, tea dreams on. The last of the tea is poured. Cats and ministers alike begin to move toward the night's next embrace. Some stretching, some curling, everyone drifting in that timeless, drowsy current of ritual and companionship. The white cat, ever dignified, leads you once again, this time with a final glance over its shoulder, as though to say, remember, all great wisdom begins with a meow and a well-brewed cup of tea. You stand, brushing a stray cat hair from your sleeve, stepping again into the winding corridors of night. As the gallery's laughter and lantern glow recede into the hush once more, you are led quietly from the lattice glow of the Scholars' Gallery through a sinuous hallway lined with old stone dragons, each their own study in gloom and benevolence. Here, the hush deepens, not cold nor forbidding, but softened by a newfound sense of intimacy, like wrapping yourself in a many-layered robe spun from dusk, tea steam, and feline purrs. The attendant walks a pace ahead, holding a lantern that pools light along the patterned floor. The white cat matches your steps now, tail trailing behind like a slow, living calligraphy stroke, brushing shadows as it goes. Every motion within the palace is a ritual, you realize. Every bedtime, a pageant played out for the benefit of a court that never wholly sleeps. Golden lacquered doors, elaborate as honeycombs, open onto the imperial chambers. You're uncertain whether anyone will mind you seeing the private world of the emperor. But by now, you've learned that there is a script to every moment, and the cats are never left out. Before you is the Hall of Heavenly Rest, the very heart of imperial nighttime, the chamber at the core of 1,000 routines and superstitions. The ceiling rises like the inside of a lacquered bowl, glossy with painted clouds and dragons, lanterns dangling at different heights to mimic the tiered stars above Beijing itself. The walls shimmer with silk hangings, embroidered over and over with gold-furred cats, immortal stalks of bamboo, and just once in every panel, a strange little mouse fleeing forever in terrified circles. It's not exactly subtle, but palatial taste doesn't always run toward subtlety. You're ushered, almost reverently, into a side alcove with a view of the whole room. Hidden among screens, painted with lotus and night garden scenes, so you become something of a discreet observer to the royal nighttime ballet. On the threshold, a young eunuch bows low, then, seeing your edge of anxiousness, gifts you a kindly wink, softening the protocol so it feels less like espionage, more like being trusted with a friend's secret. Inside, the emperor has yet to appear, but another host of palace cats fills the chamber. Several doze on warm stone tiles at the perimeter, a few more draped across low tables where the night offering snacks, lychee fruit, candied lotus, roasted chestnuts, are left temptingly uncovered. A trio of stately tabbies circle the imperial bedstead, pausing at each ornate leg as though performing a round of private inspections. A chorus of yawns breaks out. You suppress your own by focusing fiercely on the ritual at hand. The imperial bedtime has a rhythm, and it unfolds in acts. The first is incense. A pair of attendants swirl in, bearing trays of tiny blue-lidded censers. The scent is less sharp than in the great halls, a honeyed blend, thick with dried chrysanthemums and the faintest ghost of camphor. Each censer is set down with choreography as precise as brushstrokes. One at the emperor's bedside, others placed before the cat's chosen sleeping spots. A scholar in pale blue silk steps forth, and with an air of long-practiced gravity, intones a poem to the night. You've never heard a bedtime invocation so beautifully formal, or so tailored to an audience that mostly washes itself for a living. The poem, as translated for you in a slightly frazzled whisper, is both a song of thanks and a superstitious warning. Let the moon pour silver sleep. Let cats tread softly where dreamers weep. Keep nightmares from the emperor's brow. Let each soft purr bring fortune now. The cats, deeply unimpressed by human striving, merely loll and blink. That, you sense, is approval of the highest order. The next ritual is the laying out of the emperor's sleeping robe. This garment is lavished with exquisite embroidery, a garden of bronze threads and golden cats chasing floating clouds, and unfolded with a diligence usually reserved for sacred texts. No one seems to mind when a kitten from the previous courtyard adventure launches itself directly onto the silk, causing a flutter of stifled squeaks and a pause in the ritual. The kitten is extricated gently, with far less panic than you might expect. Clearly, this is not the first such incident. You catch glimpses of the final preparations, staff ushering night breezes through the carved windows, ensuring the emperor's favorite pillow, rumored to be filled with the downy undercoat of palace kittens, is plumped just so, a palace physician whispering gentle assurances to a tabby sprawled across her medical scrolls. Amid all of this, the white cat welcomes itself onto a low velvet settee, crossing its front paws and giving a sphinx-like nod of approval. You remember what a tea official said earlier. Our cats are both blessed and required by law. You get the sense that every law written for humans must pass feline inspection as well. Now, a hush, somehow both fuller and deeper than before, ripples through the chamber. The emperor is arriving. Draped in informal robes, dyed a blue dark as late water lilies, slippers silent, he enters with all the imperious ease of someone accustomed to walking out of legend and straight into his own bedtime. He seems younger than you imagined, his hair loose, his manner gentle, yet everything about him signals the gravity of this hour. Tonight, tradition holds, he will not sleep until the cats have received their share of fortune, an elaborate blessing known as bestowing the 9 lives. The emperor seats himself on the dais, nods to his officials, and gestures to the attending cats. The highest-ranking Tom, a majestic gray-striped elder, is brought forth, and the emperor bends, yes, bends, to tickle him under the chin. He whispers a prayer, words almost lost in the sound of a purr, for the health of the realm, for wise dreams, for no disturbance from mice or court intrigue. Each cat in turn receives a stroke and a little blessing. Some a murmur, some a chuckle, some a wink, and for the most skittish, just a respectful stare. The process is unhurried and oddly moving. The atmosphere is thick with reverence, but also a sly understanding. Everyone knows how important it is to keep those closest to the emperor, especially those with claws, content. At last the emperor turns to the chamber at large. He offers a small branch of osmanthus to his chief attendant, who scatters the sweet flowers near the sleeping cats as a sign of abundance. The fragrance mingles with incense, lifting your spirits in a way that can never be matched by logic, only by bedtime magic. Servants dim the lanterns so that only moonlight leaks through the eaves. The emperor rises again, stretching with a yawn, as scandalously large as any tabby, and climbs onto the bed, his official dignity discarded for the awkward squirm of getting his feet under several layers of quilt and purring cats. One cat, perched atop his pillow, stares down at him, performing its own little, silent assessment. The emperor seems to pass inspection. Only then does everyone else relax. The true sign the night's rituals are complete. You notice now, as your own eyelids begin to wheel heavy, that the entire palace relaxes in sympathetic magic. The servants melt away, the doors close softly, and low conversation simmers behind carved screens. You ponder how a world so grand and complex, so full of ceremony and distance, could, at its stillest and most profound, revolve around the modesty of bedtime, the warmth of fur on silk, and the confidence that tomorrow, too, will unfold under the gentle, inscrutable gaze of many small feline gods. In that drifting, liminal state between full waking and the lull of imperial slumber, you tiptoe from your alcove. The palace, awash in lantern dusk, beckons for one last ramble before sleep overtakes all, emperor, cat, and visiting dreamer alike. You find yourself once again guided by the quietest of companions, the white cat, barely awake, tail tip flickering with indecisive purpose. The palace is transformed now, no longer the stately domain thrumming with protocol, but a mighty, sleeping animal itself, its hidden sinews and breath made audible in the hush that fills its endless corridors. It starts simply, as most adventures do, a brush of fur against your ankle, the suggestion of movement, the faintest invitation. The corridor hums with the silence of late hours. A side door stands ajar, revealing a narrow stairway coiling upward into shadow. The cat looks at you, pupils wide and glimmering. A single, elegant merp is issued. Imperial command or cat's plea? In either case, you follow. Stone steps spiral tighter as you ascend. The air is cooler, tinged with the scent of old tiles and moonlit jasmine, with a draft so faint it might only exist in your imagination. The white cat slips ahead, vanishing and reappearing, a mischievous lantern of living silk, always waiting just beyond your reach. You emerge at last onto a terrace so high that Beijing lies below you like a city in a clear jade bowl. The roof rises to impossible peaks and curls. Up close, the golden tiles seem almost soft, smooth and glowing in the moonlight, radiating luxurious old warmth underfoot. The Forbidden City, viewed from above, is even more mysterious. Entire wings dimmed and quiet, lanterns snuffed, and the intricate layout of gardens and halls revealed only by gentle lines of silver. And you are not alone. Palace cats are everywhere. Some mingle in loose troops, chasing after shadows or balls of silvery moss. Others perch atop the upturned eaves, holding court as the breeze combs their fur and snatches at palace whispers. The bravest walk the ridges along the roof's spine, tails straight up, emperors of elevation. You join them, carefully, of course, and with a bit less grace, your shoes slipping a little on the curved tiles. The cats offer a purring kind of fellowship, neither hot nor cold on the subject of your presence, but willing to let you march, so long as in one corner, a black cat with a torn ear holds counsel beneath a monstrous tile guardian, a snarling, wide-eyed mythic beast fashioned in glimmering ceramic. The cat regards you with the mild exasperation reserved for foreigners, then returns to its business, washing a paw with immense gravity as if dispensing justice. A pair of kittens spar and tumble, so close to the edge that it makes your own stomach do a tiny, anxious flip. The city's night breeze is cool and forgiving, occasionally rippling through your robe and reminding you, yes, you are a guest here, entrusted to the care of creatures who rule by silence and stealth. The panorama unfolds. Down below, lantern light flickers inside the royal kitchens, hinting at late-night pastries or mischief. Beyond the palace walls, a handful of nighttime fires burn in distant hutongs, echoes of another world where ordinary people dream their ordinary dreams. From up here, everything feels suspended, the city's stresses and intrigues set aside until dawn. You catch yourself breathing, in rhythm with the cats, slow, deliberate, their bellies rising and falling in the moonshadow. A patrol emerges, a stately procession of elders and spry youngsters led by the white cat. Together, they perform a roof walk, crossing from golden ridge to golden ridge with the assurance of beings who feel at this hour entirely untouchable. You fall in behind, more hesitant, but emboldened. The city itself softens, noises dwindling, until all you hear is the soft shuffle of paws on tile, the quiet patter of a kitten's claws, your own heartbeat tuned to their silent tempo. Now and again, a cat pauses to watch the world, braced at the edge of a precipice, eyes taking in the sweep of lantern-lit walks and plum tree shadows. It's hard not to imagine what they see. A kingdom with no borders, a chessboard of hidden movement, dreams swirling behind every closed shutter. Occasionally, a cat will arch its back and let out a little chirp, answered in the distance by another. Palace-wide parlance, secrets passing from one rafter to the next. You're led further and higher, until you are standing on the very cusp of the Hall of Supreme Harmony. the highest point in the entire city. The tiles there are worn smooth by centuries of weather and possibly by generations of feline escapades. Everything here is bathed in the glow of the nearly full moon, the gold catching and reflecting silver, creating an unearthly shimmer that brushes even your own hands with borrowed majesty. You crouch beside the cats, glancing east toward the distant drum tower, where time itself is measured, and south to the flicker of lanterns in the city markets. The white cat sits next to you, quiet companionship as the minutes drift. A gentle paw presses against your sleeve. Somewhere below, an owl hoots, a final watchman for the city's dreams. You watch, together, as waves of moonlight ripple along the eaves, an undulant motion, gentle as sleep itself, as if the palace is rocking the whole capital into rest. The breathing of the cats creates the only true rhythm. In, out, one life drifting into the next. Stories stitched together by fur and shadow. The other cats drift further along to their chosen posts or find themselves curled in moonlit puddles of tile, forming living punctuation marks along the palace roof. Occasionally, a kitten will dart across open spaces in bursts of pure energy, chasing dreams only it can see. You never quite lose the sense of awe, mingled with the soft, ridiculous pride of having been included, even as a momentary honorary member of the Knights Patrol. There is, briefly, a sense of ceremony. The white cat stands, arches its back with a yawn, and washes its face. A ritual, you sense, as old as the palace itself. Perhaps a sign that the night's duties are drawing to a close. Below, you spot a contingent of imperial guards, moving in careful formation, making the rounds with torchlight and murmured greetings, their shadows intermingling with those of scampering cats. Even in sleep, the palace pulses with careful order, every movement a sign, every pause a meaning. You realize you're watching a city that never truly stops, each role performed with the same understated dignity found in feline midnight strolls. When the last kitten settles and the moon edges toward the far side of the sky, the white cat nudges you, not hurriedly, but with the gentle certainty that yes, it's time to return. Down the stairs, across quiet galleries, now echoing only with memory, you walk, one more shadow in a landscape made of things both ancient and fleeting. You pass through an open arch just as a breeze stirs the wisteria, petals spinning like tiny, fragrant snowflakes in the darkness. The white cat glides ahead, merging into the hush. What remains is the sense that, for as long as the palace stands, the moon will trace these roof lines, and cats will roam where emperors sleep, chasing night and fortune in equal measure. And for a little while longer, you too get to belong to this bedtime fellowship, albeit with slightly fewer lives and an awkward habit of staring in wonder at everything. The palace is different now, as you descend from your rooftop vantage back into the nearer reaches of humanity and hush. The cat parade disperses. Some vanish into attic windows barely wide enough for a whisker. Others slip beneath ceramic tiles or disappear down moonlit corridors so seamlessly, it's as though the palace itself is absorbing them. You find the marble gallery below cool underfoot, your breath slightly fogging in the night air. The lanterns, once a steady golden blaze, are shielded now, letting shadow and silver pool together in gentle gradients. You're neither quite guest nor quite ghost, floating in a sleepy in-between, guided only by the occasional swish of tail or glimmer of cat's eye at the end of a hall. You pause at an archway overlooking one of the smaller inner courts. Here, the night gardens have claimed their silence. Bamboo stalks sway restlessly against echoing walls, and a few plum trees have shed their delicate petals onto the flagstones, tiny islands of white and lavender in the dusk. The ritual cadence of daytime is gone, replaced by softer rhythms. A gardener's broom across gravel, a murmured lullaby from quarters nearby, and, perhaps, a faint crackle from charcoal braziers, keeping old bones and kittens alike warm. You find yourself observing a sleepy little congress. 4 cats and a palace maid napping together beneath a cloistered veranda. The cats are curled upon a discarded sleeve and a length of silk, twitching their paws. The maid is lost in the kind of nap that only comes to the chronically overworked, her fingers tangled in a purring tabby's fur. As you watch, another cat pads up and, with the tact of a senior official, carefully curls against the curve of her knees. Seeking both solace and shared warmth, it seems the cats, like everyone within these walls, are always tending to their people. You journey further, down a hall lined with little alcoves, each housing a scroll or a pot of tea, long gone cold. Here, even the stone lions seem drowsy, their fierce marble eyes softened by lantern glow. The white cat is waiting for you at the far end. This time, not rushing or prodding, but simply blinking, with the patience of something that knows time and sleep belong to the same family. When you reach the cat, it stretches, as if to remind you to do the same. You comply, letting your arms and back unspool, joints creaking in solidarity with centuries-old timbers. There's a lightness to your limbs now, the kind that comes from having left behind the world's noise and allowed your thoughts to slip down to a gentler frequency. Through a beaded curtain, you glimpse the quietest layer of the palace. Private chambers for the night servants, palace scholars poring over tomorrow's riddles, elderly ladies sipping a final thimble of chrysanthemum tea with their favorite lap cats. The voices are soft and drowsy, a slow ripple of bedtime contentment. No secrets are spoken here, except those fit for dreams. One room is set apart, a slightly larger study with high windows, moonlight fanning through delicate paper screens. You're drawn inside, the white cat swishing at your ankles. Here, a cluster of the emperor's favorite officers, scholars, calligraphers, and a very dignified cat wearing a tiny bell collar, are gathered at a long table. But there's no intrigue tonight. Instead, a scroll is spread open, onto which someone is drawing the day's memories. At first you assume This must be an official record. But you watch as each figure, human and feline, gets a playful, almost fond little caricature. You spot your own likeness, depicted as both awed and slightly bewildered, with a companion cat perched atop your shoulder, tail curled round your ear. The artist glances up, sees your smile, and quietly dips their brush into fresh ink. A soft shared laugh passes through the room. There's something magical about being in a place where the day's stories are allowed to be a little silly, a little warm, and not always entirely true. Someone pours you a cup of warm barley tea and gestures to a spot at the table. The cat with the bell leaps into your lap and almost purrs itself inside out, kneading and chattering as though reciting its own bedtime poem. You sip, quiet, caught in this floating hour, a lull between one set of rituals and the next. Before long, the household has dwindled to just a handful of servants and cats still awake. The white cat, having supervised your tea drinking and accepted its rightful share of crumbs, hops to the floor and leads you through a hidden passage behind the tapestry. This last bit seems designed for dreamers. A corridor so gently twisting and dim that it feels like something from a myth. The world reduced to hush. Paw pads on stone. Your own ankles brushing silk. You emerge into yet another garden. This one planted with fragrant, night-blooming flowers. Moon jasmine, tuberose, late plum. The air is delicious, thick with scent and dew. Here, too, cats are curled up in clusters and pairs, finding warmth wherever it lies. To your surprise, a tiny ginger cat creeps up and offers you a sleepy headbutt. You crouch, rub its ears, and it rewards you with a mighty, rattling purr. This garden, like the palace itself, seems to pulse with gentle secrets. You sit on a worn stone bench, the cat hopping into your lap and curling into a perfect donut. The flowers shift in the nighttime breeze. Petals tap your knee as if wishing you good dreams. It occurs to you that in a world consumed by hierarchy and spectacle, these plain moments, cats snuggled against sleeves, a stolen cup of tea, a whispered laugh in a back garden, are the very soul of the palace. The grandeur is just the stage, and the true story will always be told in velvet paws and shared warmth. A bell sounds, a gentle, three-note chime, nothing severe or jarring. It is the signal for the night's final settling. Cats find their people and their places. Sleep claims the palace slowly, like water filling a bowl, and you let your head nod, eyes heavy. Even the white cat, who has herded you through the inner kingdoms of the Forbidden City, succumbs, curling up at your side as if to stand watch over your dreams. You close your eyes, chasing one last thread of moonlight through the lattice. There is nothing more to do. The world recedes, not cold, but kind, full of the rhythm of pause and breath and memory, and you let yourself drift, another gentle secret in a palace that has always known how to keep them. ... You are not certain when you drifted off beneath the night-blooming jasmine, nor do you remember inviting the white cat to press its weight so companionably on your shins. But this is the gentle confusion the palace offers now. The air is thick with the velvet hush before dawn. You sense that the entire world is suspended in this silvery stasis. The palace courtyards held mid-breath, the gardens surrendered wholly to the soft tyranny of sleep. Some distant rooster ponders his career, but has not yet announced himself. Somewhere up in the eaves, a pair of sparrows grumble about the length of the evening shift. For just this singular threshold, suspended between moon and morning, all is possibility, as if the palace itself is deciding what to become when it wakes. The cats, too, are half dreaming. The white cat's tail twitches in response to dreams you'll never know, while the ginger, now curled in the hollow between bench and thigh, sighs deeply, as if the weight of all palace politics rests on its small ginger paws. You realize that, at this very moment, everyone here, from the most privileged official snoozing under silk-embroidered canopies, to the boy who sweeps away stray petals, to the elderly gardener dreaming of immortal chrysanthemums, are united by a single, pure commonality: the surrender to rest. You listen as a breath of dawn stirs the palace leaves. In this pre-morning hush, the familiar palace noises are softened almost out of existence. Somewhere a porcelain cup is set down with care. Wooden sandals, meaningless during daytime bustle, move with dignified restraint across old boards. You can almost hear the emperors of centuries past snore in dignified counterpoint, a symphony of rulers put to bed by the world's most insistent cats. A faint silvery trill, the first bell that signals the palace's awakening, gently wends its way through the halls. Instead of leaping up, the cats merely blink at one another and return to dreams. A few officials, already preparing for the day, proceed with all the fervor of drifting lotus petals. Even waking cannot quite dislodge the serenity of sleep. The world might be waiting, but the cats have spoken, and their decree, at least for now, is to savor the last minute of rest. Somewhere, incense is rekindled, curling with grace toward the painted rafters, a reminder that with every cycle of sleep and wakefulness, the palace is made new again. You wonder briefly what stories the cats will carry into the next day. Perhaps a tale about the dreamy foreign visitor who crashed the inner courts, or perhaps only the memory of shared warmth on a garden bench beneath perfumed stars. The white cat, your small, inscrutable guide, finally lifts its head, blinking in that ancient, appraising feline way. It is time, it says, to leave this gentle liminality, this soft borderland between waking world and dream. With a last slow stretch and luxurious yawn, your cat companion strolls away, tail high, disappearing through a hedge of night-hardened peonies, off to whatever dawn duty awaits her. You, too, feel the subtle summons of the world beginning again. You stand, carefully, no sudden moves among sleeping cats, and walk as naturally as anyone who's spent the night consorting with imperial cats and shadows. The palace seems transformed by slumber, every surface aglow with the quiet luster that only those who stay awake to see it will ever know. Servants and scribes begin to appear, speaking in low voices, eyes still clouded with half-dreamt stories. You follow the winding garden paths back to the jade courtyard, which was so bustling the previous evening, but is now upholstered in peace. Every stone and lantern outlined in the pale pink of encroaching dawn. A few cats stretch languidly in sunbeams, as if testing the edge of the day. At the far end of the courtyard, the palace gates, the ones that once seemed so daunting, are being unbarred with slow, courteous ceremony. The outside world stirs, but no one rushes. In this enchanted, transitional hour, even the city of Beijing matches the palace's easy tempo. You realize, perhaps with a little shock of gratitude, that you are entirely yourself, drowsy, intact, soul unsnagged by duty or danger. A kitchen maid, rumpled and red-eyed, passes you on her way to the day's first chores, a marmalade kitten perched determinedly on her shoulder. You exchange a nod, a silent acknowledgement that you have both seen the palace as it truly is, at its most vulnerable and its most alive. You linger, letting yourself absorb the last syllables of this quiet opera. The clink of teacups in the outer kitchens, the dozy scolds of palace magpies, the gentle, approving hum of cats everywhere, declaring that another day may now begin. The emperor, hidden in distant chambers, will soon stir, surrounded by his feline retinue, and the palace will return to its clockwork ritual of order and theater. But for now, in this last unguarded minute, you can remain part of this softer world, this secret kingdom ruled nightly by paws, purrs, and imperceptible tides. Here, sleep is a shared inheritance, and dreams are as real as gold. You allow yourself one final deep breath, heavy with incense, tea, and the slightly spicy note of night air. The palace recedes behind you, not shutting you out, but wishing you safe passage, not just into the waking world, but deeper, more generous rest for the next night, wherever that might find you. And if you wake tomorrow to a white cat, or the rustling of bamboo against your window, or the scent of jasmine at your pillow, well, don't be alarmed. Some dreams are too gracious to let go, and some palace cats, it's whispered, never truly leave your side. You've nearly crossed the threshold now, between story and sleep, between an emperor's palace and the everyday hush of your own room. The last glimmers of moonlight fade, and the Ming Dynasty grows soft and indistinct at the edges, like a watercolor left out in gentle rain. Before you go fully, pause and feel the trace of cool stone under your feet, the sweet tang of incense in your lungs. Imagine, if you like, a white cat purring against your arm, tiny velvet paws kneading away any concern. The creak of the palace gates is far behind you. All you carry forward is warmth and a lingering sense of belonging. Proof that even in an age where every surface gleamed with gold and every footstep echoed ceremony, there was always room for soft paws, sleepy laughter, and the humble magic of letting go. If your mind wanders back to the jade courtyard or the glow of a scholar's lamp, let it. If the world outside your window seems quieter now, Filled with feline patience and history's hush, you're in good company. You've joined a noble lineage of dreamers, servants, scholars, rulers, and yes, even the palace cats, who once allowed themselves this peace. Let your breathing deepen. Let your pulse settle unhurried. Sleep will find you, as it finds emperors, as it finds the smallest kitten beneath a garden bench, softly, without pause. And so, dear listener, drift easily. The palace, its cats, its centuries, all of it is safely at rest, and so are you. End of the story. Sweet dreams.